Alrighty. So I wanted to get you guys a little more video stuff, right? So what I want to do is I wanted to create some kind of futuristic, kind of one-piece, kind of leg armrest thing for this chair. So once again, what we want to do is really probably start with a new object. And remember, you can double-click, right, and label this, right? So if you just go to that little kind of outliner scene collection thing up here, you can double-click on the cube and call this cushions, right? Good to label that stuff. And then what we could do, of course, is, go to 4 for object mode, go to add mesh, cube, right? And that gives us a new cube. Now in this case, though, you'll notice when we create anything new, it creates it right on the 0. And you even have the kind of origin and the cursor set there, right? So what I like to do at that point is go to 3 for face mode. The nice thing is everything's already selected, but remember, select all or select linked. And what I can do is I can move this over, and you see how your origin and your pivot stay there, and that's important because that's how mirror modifier is going to work based off of that, right? So in this case, I'm just kind of moving this over here. I'm going to hit R for scale, grab kind of the red handle, kind of bring that in a little bit just to thin this out quite a bit for the leg. Probably thin it out a bit this way as well, kind of get us a decent little small starting piece. And of course, I can hit W for move, right? That was R for scale. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my mirror modifier, right? So 4 for object mode, go to add modifier, mirror. And of course, it's already set to X. I do want clipping on for this one because I'm going to kind of make it one piece. But we are going to keep it low res, right? So yeah, the cushions were softer, and we kind of could use subdivision surface for that, and that's fine. But I figured this would be cool to kind of do low res again. This is very much going to be pretty much just what we did for our table legs, right? So I'm going to double click on this, just call it legs, right? There we go. And I'll hit Control S just to save. And remember, you want to turn your triangle on, all right? This time I'd only want X, right? I don't really want it mirrored on both sides. So no X and Y, just X in this case. And I'll hit 3 to go to face mode. And I'm going to probably take this face and move it forward a little bit. All right. And what we could do is maybe move it out a little bit as well. And what I could do is I could start to do further modeling for this, right? So I could hit Alt-C for kind of a quick loop cut. And remember, if you left-click drag, it's going to allow you to drag that kind of edge loop wherever you want to, right? If you just left-click, it puts it right in the middle. But if you left-click drag with loop cut, right, Alt-C, it allows you to put the whole edge loop in. So I'm going to hit 3 for face mode. W for my move tool because that'll turn off the loop cut and switch to the move tool. And I can grab that face, and I'm going to extrude, right? So I'm going to hit Control E for extrude. In this case, I do want it to kind of be more freeform, so I'll just middle mouse, right? And I want it to kind of round up a little bit, so maybe hit E for rotate. Now, if you want to just use the red handle to rotate it perfectly there, you can, but you can also just middle mouse, right? I'm going to move this in a little bit as well, W for move. Maybe switch it to that view, right? E for rotate. Remember, middle mouse button will automatically do view move or view rotate, right? Whereas you have to specifically grab on the handles if you want to rotate it or move it just along one axis. In this case, I want this to be more organic, so Control E for extrude. I'll bring this out again here. Now you notice if I just kind of move it, it gets a little shorter, thinner, right? So you always want to make sure to hit E for rotate and rotate it. You see how it kind of keeps that shape kind of a little bit better? You might even hit 2 for edge mode, double click to select that edge and rotate that. And you see how it kind of keeps the shape kind of more uniform and rounded? So keep that in mind as you're kind of doing these things, right? So I'll hit 3 to go back to face mode, maybe rotate a little more. But you notice how you can switch your views, right? Alt-left to rotate your camera. I'm going to hit Control E again for extrude. And I'll hit E for rotate to kind of do a bit of view rotate. Maybe a little view rotate there. Maybe kind of bring it up a little bit more. Control E for another extrusion. Now at this point, I'm getting closer and closer to wanting these to clip. So what I'll do is I'll delete faces, right? Just hit delete, pick faces, that gets rid of that. And at this point, if I want to, I could just go to 2 for edge mode, double left click, and I could just keep moving this border edge loop around, right? But remember, you can extrude border edge loops, right? Any edge that's connected to 2 edge faces, don't extrude it. You'll create non-manifold geometry, and that's messy. But border edges, where these edges are only connected to one face, you can extrude those. Control E for extrude, And we can bring these in towards the center, and because of that clipping, they automatically stick together and weld, which is super, super cool. I could double left click because I'm in edge mode, right? 2 for edges. And you see I can kind of go back in here and double left click. E for rotate, double left click, W for move, right? And remember, middle mouse button on your keyboards will do that view move. And so we can kind of get a nice little, really quickly kind of, bit of nice rounded curvature right there. So believe it or not, you can get rounded shapes pretty easily and quickly, even without a subdivisional surface preview, right? And so that's kind of what my goal has been with this one, right? Is just to kind of maybe get ourselves a bit more futuristic one. Control E. Now in this case, I don't want to extrude out along this normal direction because that'll pull it down. So if I hit W, you'll notice it cancels the extrude. So what you want to do is you want to hit Control E and then middle mouse click so it creates the extrusion, then W. And you see how kind of by middle mouse clicking without dragging, it just extrudes it, right? So middle mouse click instead of middle mouse drag, and it will create your extrusion without kind of moving it anywhere. And then you just switch to W for move and move this. Now if you want to straighten this up, hit R for scale, and you can grab kind of that green handle to scale that in a bit, all right? Because as you scale it towards the center, that makes that size smaller and smaller until it gets to 0. And 0 is basically flat, right? So even though there's actually technically a flatten tool in here, I'll show you guys eventually later on, you can do it with scale as well. So I'll hit Control E for extrude again, middle mouse click just to do the extrusion, then W for move, and I can move it back out. At this point, I think I'm going to rotate it up a little bit though. E for rotate, rotate a little bit. Control E for extrude, and this one I'll kind of free move it, right? Middle mouse drag. E for rotate, middle mouse button to view rotate. Remember, you can rotate it from different views. Although, if you put your cursor and left click here, you can do kind of a trackball rotation, right? Which is actually quite cool. So once you get used to these manipulator handles, they're actually great, and they work awesome. Control E for extrusion again. I can bring this kind of up. E for rotate, middle mouse button to kind of do a little bit of view rotate there. Control E again, middle mouse button. Maybe a little bit of view rotate. E for rotate, middle mouse button. Maybe W for move, move a little bit. And you can always adjust these more as you go later on, right? And if you want to do them as bigger ones and then kind of loop cut, you can of course do that, right? So I can hit Control E and kind of really push it further up. W for move, E for rotate, maybe do a little bit of view rotate there. Control E, a little bit of view move there. And of course, Alt C for loop cut. I could put a loop cut right there in the middle, W for move. The nice thing is when you do a loop cut, it selects that edge loop for you automatically. So all you have to do is hit W to switch to your move tool, right? And of course, we can see that double left clicking while you're in edge mode, right? 2 for edge mode, will allow you to easily grab and move these. So I can move this one up a little bit, Alt C for loop cut, right in the middle, W for move. And you see I can get this nice bit of roundness there. And remember, you can always go back, double left click, view move a little bit if you want to, just to kind of adjust those a little bit more. Keep them simpler though, right? You know, I'm not adding a million edge loops here. I'm trying to keep it a little bit, enough to get us some good roundness, but not tons and tons of edge loops. So I'm going to hit 3 for face mode again. And for this one, I think I'm going to actually rotate this to kind of straighten it up a little bit there. There we go. Maybe bring it up there a little bit. Alt C for loop cut, kind of left click drag to put an edge loop about there. 3 for face. And W for move because I'll probably want to move it a little bit or do something else to it. Remember, you can always just go right to your tweak tool if you want to also, or Q for your selection tool. Control E for extrude. Middle mouse, maybe a little bit of E for rotate. We can kind of start to make our handle, our kind of armrest here a little bit. Control E. And I'll just middle mouse click again to do another extrusion, right? So remember, you can keep that tool active and just keep doing stuff, right? 2 for edge mode. Maybe you do a little bit of view rotate. And I kind of feel like maybe a little bit of that one there. I'm going to Alt C for loop cut, just to kind of put an edge loop right about there. 3 for face. Remember, Q is your quick key for selection. And in this case, what I could do is I could select this face and this face, right? One face to one face. And if I right click, it'll bring up my face context menus, and you'll see bridge faces is there, and I could actually create a bridge there. Now I'll hit 2 for edge mode, and I'll double click on that one. Double left click, right? W for move, and I can move this out a little bit. And I can keep those sharper if I want, but I can also Alt-C for loop cut. Maybe bring that in a little bit. And you see how you can kind of start to make kind of a more futuristic kind of leg structure here. Remember, you can always adjust shapes as you go, right? Double click, move those up a little bit to kind of get that a little bit of more wideness. If you go to 3 for face mode, remember, double click on a face in between edges. It selects a face loop. And you could do up arrow to grow selection, right? Make sure to grab everything on the arm, then down arrow, and you see how it kind of keeps everything that's selected, but loosens, gets rid of those. And you can always move that up, right? So if you want your kind of armrests a little further up, you can bring them up there. So remember, 3 for face mode, double click on a edge between the faces, selects the face loop, up arrow to select those, then down arrow to kind of shrink it again so that it keeps all that extra stuff but not those, and you can move those around. And I was just using things like, being in a face, right? If you have multiple faces selected at different parts on your model. When you right click, you'll get bridge face. That just creates geometry in between them. But otherwise, it was extrude, Control-E, Alt-C for loop cut. And then just kind of, moving, rotating to get the shape we wanted. Now, I'm not quite done with this, but we'll kind of do another video next week to kind of finish it up with some bevels, maybe a little more modeling. But I did want to get you guys started on creating the table legs and the fact that you can get pretty creative with how you use clipping and mirror and extrude. But really, nothing we didn't do on our table legs, right? Just kind of, doing them a little bit different shape. All right, so that'll be, I think, a great place to stop for the chair.